After the death of the Mad King, Robert Baratheon ascended the Iron Throne to become the king. But what if Ned Stark instead chose to claim the Iron Throne? How would this change the events of the series?
Actually, you know what, dude? I was thinking about it. This doesn't really change too much, so I think we just call this a video. Wrap it up.
Yeah, let's close it up.
Yeah, close it up. But no, it goes in a ton of different directions. This is one of like the earliest changes that you could make in the series, and it changes a ton. And make sure to stick around because eventually there's some interesting stuff we got to talk about between Ned, now as king, and a certain Viserys Targaryen III. Because that's a dynamic I think no one really expects.
Yeah, maybe possible team up.
Oh,
But
dude.
before we get to that, right, let's start off right where kind of the decision branches off. So in this what-if scenario, the events of Robert's rebellion basically follows the same exact plot points as they go through. And the biggest thing within our what-ifs that we kind of struggle with is, hey, how do we ensure that our characters are consistent with their decisions while also potentially changing one decision they make or maybe forcing them down a path that they might not want to go down? Because this is hard for us even to start off with, thinking that Ned would want to even take the Iron Throne at the time where Robert's rebellion's over, right? Like, hey, Ned goes to King's Landing, sees the massacre, then breaks the siege off of Stannis Baratheon, then goes down, sees Lyanna, and then comes back. At that point, then Ned needs to
see it as a necessity, right? He needs to see it as like
Right.
there's no other way. And honestly, after thinking about this for a little bit, there are a couple ways that I think make more sense that he would take it than not. Like, I think that if you look at this the right way, it makes more sense that he would take it over Robert Baratheon because he knows the kind of guy that Robert is. He knows that Robert really probably isn't meant to rule, right? Like, he's a Chad. He's one of my favorite Chads in the series. But he's not
Right.
meant to be like a settle down with Cersei Lannister king. You know, he's not that guy. So if for me, it would start back at the Tower of Joy. This would be the initial kind of inkling of letting Ned know, hey, I got to take the reins on this bad boy, if not convincing him outright. And this is kind of a spoiler for a lot of how I view this stuff. But when he goes up there and he sees little baby Jon Snow, you know, with Lyanna Stark, it's ambiguous as to what exactly her promise is or the oath that she makes him swear to her in the series. And that's all we know so far. We don't have the book version of these events. All we know is that she says, you know, promise me, Ned. You know, promise me, please promise me. And he's like, okay, yeah, I promise you. And I think a lot of people take that to mean, like, make sure that no one ever finds out who his parents are. But I think that's kind of only relevant in the context of Robert Baratheon, like this bloodthirsty anti-Targaryen dude. You know, he doesn't like retargs at all. But if Ned thought about that for 2 seconds, it's like, well, I mean, Robert being king isn't set in stone. Like, this is his rebellion, but he's more of a berserker warrior than a king. If I were to be the one to sit on the throne, there might be a lot more reasonable stuff to happen. And right off the hop, I don't have to keep this kid a secret, as opposed to him, you know, taking this kid as his bastard and living a lie for a long time. I'm not saying that would be the thing that would for sure do it alone, but I think that's the starting point. And then later on, like you said, when he finds Jaime sitting on the throne after Jaime killed the Mad King and there's all this other chaos happening, he learns about what the Mountain did, et cetera, et cetera. I think he would maybe see himself as a better fit to be like, I'm about to plop my ass down on this seat.
Right, or it sees like how Robert reacts to it. And he's like, yeah, it's war. It's like, dude, I understand war, but letting the Mountain make a mess of those Martells is a little too far, right?
Oh, yeah,
I understand
big time.
potentially making a mess of a lot of the Kingsguard and, you know, these other people that are defending the Red Keep, but, you know, so you get into women and children. I know they're Dornish, but they're women and children, right? So I think that's
Plug your
another
nose
reason
and
why.
deal with them being there, you know?
I think that's where Ned kind of draws the line. Also, like you said, him understanding Robert's wrath and how he's going to deal with those kids, and then he also sees how he wants to deal with the other Targaryen children across into Dragonstone over there. I think that plays into Ned's decision. Also, potentially, maybe he gets like a good vibe, or I should say a good understanding of the vibe, not a good vibe, bad vibe from Catelyn, and he's like, ooh, if I bring Catelyn around Jon, or, you know, vice versa, Jon around Catelyn, ooh, I think he's gonna have he's gonna live like hell on earth with this nasty bitch.
Yeah.
Maybe we should figure out a way to like keep him somewhere else and do the cringe happy wife, happy life, Ned Stark.
Just don't even say that again, even as a joke. But
the
better outcome would be in this situation that you're describing. The better outcome would be, man, you know, if I bring this kid around, this innocent baby child who did nothing wrong to anybody in his life, I feel like my wife is going to treat him like absolute shit until adulthood, and he's going to lack a mother figure.
Yeah.
To me, you know, that says to me, ditch the new wife. Ditch the brand new wife that you have no real connection to at this point. You already married her out of duty. But what's a higher duty? like this rando that you just married because your brother was, reluctantly also betrothed to her, or doing right by your nephew and really, honestly, the rightful heir to the Seven Kingdoms,
Right.
in reality. So that's why I think one of the most likely scenarios, if not the most likely scenario, would be Ned taking this seat, but he would view himself as king regent the whole time. I think he would view himself as king regent. And this is where, do you want to talk about the Vizzy thing real quick too while we're here? You implied to me that you think maybe Vizzy 3 and his high tea energy should be king.
Well, listen, I want anything. I'll try to do everything to get Vizzy 3 to sit that Chad ass right on the Iron Throne anytime I can, right? I'm going to do that in my head no matter what. But as I think about this scenario where Ned Stark becomes king or wants to sit the Iron Throne, it just seemed out of his character to do so. If this was Brandon Stark, this would make total sense. Like if you switch Ned Stark with Brandon,
oh, dude.
Ned dies down there at King's Landing, Brandon definitely...
His large-nutted brother.
Oh, I know, dude. The true wolf, not the silent wolf like Ned. But yeah, Brandon definitely would take the Iron Throne. I don't think Robert would get in his way either. So if that was the case, that makes total sense. But Ned is the silent wolf where he's more, maybe not a wallflower, but he's not nearly as like bombastic and outright.
Well, he's passive for sure.
Well, yeah, well, he's not in your face like Robert is. And Robert is way more of like the face of this rebellion too, because it's called Robert's Rebellion. So Ned definitely does not want like the Iron Throne for power and glory. So if he was in there as potentially regent and he's saying, hey, listen, we killed the Mad King, we killed Rhaegar, we have 2 other Targaryens. Let's raise these children upright and hopefully just get this dynasty back on track. Because I have no interest in overthrowing the whole entire dynasty. I just want to kind of overthrow the current leader, if that makes sense. So by doing that, he could say, hey, we're going to get everything back on track. I'm going to be behind the wheel a little bit. We'll get Vizzy 3 on there. Everything's going back to normal. Versus this total upheaval of 300 years of tradition and legacy.
Okay, so so you and me generally we agree that Ned would probably be a king regent to try to get the Targaryen line back on track, and it kind of sucks because I think Robert would kind of feel like his nuts are being speed bagged, by Ned here.
Well, I think we mentioned earlier, like when me and you were kind of just discussing, like, hey, where are the parameters of this topic? We thought about if we did it where Robert somehow died between Rhaegar in that fight, or soon thereafter, this would make way more sense as well. But I think we want to keep Robert alive. I don't think we want to switch too many things.
No,
here.
But dude, I got it, man. If Robert had to die, this is skipping a little bit here. We'll go back. We'll retrace after this. But just imagine this, okay? If Robert has to die. Imagine he kind of is disgruntled with Ned, but he's still an honorable guy too, to some extent, right? And he's a berserker. He can't make all the rules. He just becomes like this war battle-hungry, drunken dude, but he never loses it, right? Because he stays so active. And eventually, I think Balon the bitch Greyjoy is still going to try to rebel. He's still going to get his little, his little big kid boots on. He's like, ooh, I think I deserve independence of the Iron Islands. It's like, no, you don't, bitch. No, you don't. But him and all of his disgusting waterlogged brothers get on board, and Robert's bloodthirsty for anything he can get. So Stannis personally escorts him with the new royal fleet, escorts Robert over to Pike and smash Balon's heads in. Then he would go around to each of Balon's pathetic brothers and test each of their gag reflexes with the hilt of his hammer, to see who could be Lord Regent until, whichever kid of Balon comes of age.
Balon, that went down pretty easy.
Balon's dead. This would be Euron or Aeron or Victarion.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're one throne. Or honestly, maybe the Greyjoys would just be ousted entirely. Victarion gets his chest caved in. It's like with Rhaegar, except this time there's actually some muscle mass behind the armor. And then Euron gets his one remaining eye boinked out from just the sheer pressure in the area after Robert sinks his ship with one single swing of his hammer. And then Robert's a little tired out from that big excursion, so he takes Euron's sack and he wrings it out over his forehead to cool him down. That's my dream. And then maybe in this process, Robert could die, right? He dies in this battle.
Thank you for your 3-paragraph explanation of your fanfic of how Robert possibly could die in glory.
Hey, you brought it up, man. You brought this on.
Yeah, that's true. I did open the box here. But yeah, that was part of our discussion. Like, hey, do we keep Robert alive in the situation where Ned becomes king? So do you agree with me that Ned potentially is going to be king regent, or like the regent to the king, or the soon-to-be king? Or do you think he assumes the throne?
Well, I think he would take the throne, quote unquote, but I think it would be always for regency's sake, because he definitely wants to get back to Winterfell. He wants to not necessarily be Lord of Winterfell, but that's his home. He wants to be with his people. I don't think he has any interest in ruling King's Landing, even by like duty or necessity, but he would definitely see this as like a little like temporary sacrifice needed. The only difference between us is that you think maybe Vizzy 3 would be the one that he's kind of priming, whereas I think, and again, even though this is a really big blow to Robert, I think Ned is so honorable, or whatever you want to say, that it makes more sense for him to be like, listen, I saw my sister before she died, and it turns out, at least going by the show's logic,
there's no way
they had this kid. What's Robert going to do? He's not in charge. He's going to kill this little kid? Why would he even do it? If he's not going to kill Vizzy 3, if Ned can talk him out of that, why would he be able to talk him out of killing this kid?
I don't know if Ned knows that this child. Well, I think he assumes it's Rhaegar's, right? I don't think he assumes they had Gerald Hightower and Arthur Dayne were taking turns on his sister there, because she's already pregnant, right? There's already 9 months of pregnancy now that the child's being born there, right? So I don't think he assumes it's anyone's child other than Rhaegar's. But how does he know that this child's not born out of wedlock and actually has legitimacy to be Rhaegar's heir, right? How does he know?
I guess
Lyanna doesn't seem to be explaining everything. She's just like, promise me, Ned, promise me. Which, honestly, her promise could be, don't let Robert's juicy ass sit the Iron Throne. That could be one of her promises she asked Ned to keep.
Yeah, don't tell him that the Sword of the Morning unsheathed Dawn and inserted it to me again and again and again, the fleshy Dawn. But yeah, I guess that's true. There's no reason to think that they had a legitimate marriage or whatever. Yeah, maybe that's true. So maybe it is Vizzy 3 that'd be the better option for it, because I definitely do think that Ned would be King Regent. It just seems weird that... So is there really no way that Ned is not going to bring Jon Snow around and claim that it's his bastard? Like, that's the part that I don't understand, and I still think it barely makes any sense that Ned is willing to let this kid just go through such turmoil his whole life, man. I don't understand it. Like, honestly, it's not a plot hole. It's just almost character assassination for Ned to have that. So I feel like this what if could fix that in some way. If it's not the true heir situation, then it's whatever. But by the way, if for some reason that's ever uncovered at the Citadel, I don't know why Samwell, Munchlax Tarly would ever be over there. But if he did and he revealed it to the world, then it's like that kind of shakes things up, man. You're looking at another Targaryen civil war potentially. I don't know. I'm just saying.
So I don't want Ned to take him to court with them, Jon Snow to court with them and say, oh, this is my bastard son. I'm, King Regent here, and I'm just going to bring my bastard around and have Catelyn give him death stares the whole time. I think he either sends him back up to Winterfell with Benjen, because there's also, we don't know if Benjen knows about Jon and Lyanna. I think it could go either way, right?
I mean, true to Ned's character, he probably wouldn't know, but see, in my mind, like a logical but still honorable Ned would be telling very select people about this, because again, the promise is not explicitly don't tell anyone whose kid this is. The promise seems to be like, keep this kid safe, right? That seems to be what the promise is. And so if it's like, man, how do you not tell at least Benjen and Catelyn, man? How do you not tell them?
I mean, if I was Ned and I don't tell anybody, I tell Benjen, this is my bastard son. I'm having him come stay with you. So Benjen raises him, and Benjen, marries some lady potentially, as he's like the Lord of Winterfell at this point, just is there in the meantime till basically Ned is relieved of his duties when Vizzy 3, Viserys III rises up and claims Iron Throne.
Best Viserys.
Jon Snow stays there with Benjen and then maybe goes and gets fostered. Because Ned Stark isn't some just random lord. He was one of the major historical figures in this time period that overthrew the current regime, right? So it's not like he's like basically a founding father of this new regime. If he wanted his bastard son to go over to Greywater Watch or the Manderleys or, maybe the Mormonts, he definitely could, I feel like. And I know some people are like, no, bastards can't. They wouldn't allow that. I mean, Robert's bastards are treated pretty well. Jon Snow's treated really well. The only thing is Catelyn just wants to literally stab him in the back constantly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Ned's in this position of power too, by the way, King or King Regent, I'm pretty sure even as King Regent, you can legitimize bastards. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do that as King Regent. Make his life just a shred easier. He's going to be living up in a hellhole anyway. Like, dude, honestly, come on. Winterfell sucks. I know people like fantasize about Winterfell because it's like, oh, it's so beautiful and snowy. It sucks. If Vizzy T was up there, that'd be the only way it's acceptable, because his skin is so burning red hot from his high tea that it would neutralize the environment.
So if I was Ned, make the golden path move for Jon. Eventually he goes down to Greywater Watch where Howland Reed, the only other person that has to know the secret, right? Howland Reed knows because he was there at the Tower of Joy with Ned. So Howland Reed would know. I think he can trust him with him. So he might just go down to Greywater Watch where he becomes basically a Florida man of Westeros, right? Like, yeah, we the Reeds down here in these swamplands. I'm gonna be Jon Snow. Comment down below who you think the Florida man is of Westeros. If it's not the Greywater Watch, the alligator, the gator of Sigil within Westeros. Cut. Oh, gator.
Okay, so Ned is now king. I don't think that Littlefinger is really going to be in King's Landing at all, and I think Tywin is going to end up being in that role as Master of Coin. And the reason why I think that is because given everything that happened with the Lannisters and Robert's rebellion, Ned is not going to be the same as Robert, man. Like Jaime, we know they have bad blood, Jaime and Ned. He's going to send that guy straight to the wall. He's going to send him straight to the wall, and he's absolutely going to demand that the Mountain is killed. I don't even think that the Mountain gets a chance to go to the wall. He busted into Elliot Martell's chamber with a craving for grape. Okay, he spent that whole afternoon plucking grapes off the vine, and I don't think that Ned's going to have anything to do with that. I think he's going to demand that the Mountain be executed. And maybe the Mountain demands a trial by combat. I have no idea. What, Barristan versus the Mountain? The Hound versus the Mountain? Jaime versus the Mountain to earn his freedom? It could go anywhere. Epic battle preferably takes place on the Sept in the presence of the Seven. It'd be amazing. But either way, what do you think about that? I think that the only way at that point, and also bear in mind, Cersei is not going to be marrying into the royal family directly now, unless you want to send her up with Benjen or something like that. But even then, now it's a little bit removed. I think Tywin needs to be appeased politically, and I think the best way to do that is to put him as Master of Coin.
I don't know if Master of Coin is enough for Tywin to be happy, because you're taking his heir away from him. That's very unfortunate for him, because he was hoping, hopefully, somehow he can maneuver Jaime out of that position. I think he, like we talked about, he tries too hard to show his allegiance to the winning side now. It's like, come on, Tywin, just chill out a little bit. The thing is if Ned goes too hard, which I agree with Ned, like, Head's got a role to ensure that we keep this kingdom the way I want to. I'm not compromising my morals. If Ned wants to do that, then the Lannisters are going to pay so much of the brunt of that punishment that I don't know why Tywin wouldn't want to like team up with the Tyrells, because Tyrells at this point are going to they're going to be probably pardoned, similar to how Robert did with the Tyrells, Mace.
Yeah, yep.
But how does it's so hard. How do you keep the Seven Kingdoms together by ensuring that the Lannisters pay for their crimes in the Red Keep? I really don't know how he does it, because I just don't think Master of Coin's enough. He has to do something. Jaime getting stripped of his Kingsguard duties isn't enough for Ned. He's the king at this point. He has to go to the wall. He has Tyrion,
to. Yeah, he has to go to the wall. And that's the thing. Yeah, I understand Tywin's upset, but it's not like he's losing an heir altogether. He doesn't want Tyrion. I understand that, but it's still an heir, and he could, like Ned, to further appease him, could set up Tyrion with some dime woman, right, in a high status, and they could conceive a child, and then that could kind of set the Lannister line back on track. I'm just saying it's definitely possible, and I don't know, man. I think that Master of Coin could be enough for Tywin right now. It might lead him to kind of start to scheme later, because Tywin's going to be well aware that this reign of Ned is only temporary anyway. So you don't think he maybe would be satisfied, sit on the small council as Master of Coin, preparing for whatever schemes he's got going after Ned kicks his ass back up to Winterfell or whatever? Tywin's not leaving the Red Keep. He's got to be around to make sure that plumbing's always up to snuff.
I don't know how he accepts any proposal that Ned gives him with a smile on his face. If he's like, oh, you can be Master of Coin, it's like, yeah, that's better than nothing, I guess. If you're going to punish me and then eventually give me a role in your small council to like basically fund your guys' regime, your new regime here. So even if Tywin was offered Hand of the King, but you sent his son up there, I still don't know if that's even enough for Tywin, right? So
I don't think Tywin gets Hand of the King though either. Like, no,
I don't think so
way.
either.
Yeah.
I think Jon Arryn's is Ned's
Definitely.
pick for Hand of the King, just like Robert. With Tyrion possible marriage proposal, I was thinking to myself as you're explaining these possible scenarios, what if Ned somehow was like, well, my first daughter will marry your son? Sansa just gets brought back to Tyrion somehow. I don't think that will happen, because I think if Ned is politically savvy and he wants to ensure there's stability in the realm and we kind of unite this kingdom again, I think he would try to marry Sansa to Vizzy 3 or, Robb to Dany, because they're going to be born right around the same time as well. So I don't know which one's the better one. I don't think he does both, but he definitely needs to ensure. Which, I mean, I guess, Vizzy 3 is too young for Cersei right now, I mean, I would say, maybe he says, hey, Cersei, you marry Vizzy 3, you get your line to the kingdom here. But then, I don't know. I think that's opening up too much. And I know Ned has to compromise a little bit, but as soon as he starts letting in too many of these, stinker binguses, the spiders and rats within the small council, they're going to overwhelm him. And I think that will happen. It's just a matter of time and who it will be.
The thing that I was thinking about with a lot of this Lannister stuff, though, too, is Dorne. And even though I don't really care about the Toad people at all, and if I do care about them, it's only negatively, they are still a major player. So if you took Tywin and you disgruntled him to such an extent that he went and allied with the Tyrells, what are they really doing? They're just kind of sitting over there, the Reach and the Westerlands, just grumpy, sitting over there, just pissed off at the world. I don't want to start king. Like, What are they doing? Who cares?
That's the kind of nice thing of how Robert's rebellion kind of ended, was that Robert was able to marry, Cersei, keep the Westerlands within the fold. The Reach is overpowered, so they're not going to go and try to start a war by themselves, right? Who are they going to align with? Their arch rivals, the Martells, right? So they're going to naturally butting heads against each other. So it's kind of a masterful plan by, just the rebellion itself to have Robert be put there with Cersei as his bride. That way is he able to unite the Seven Kingdoms, or at least most of them, by force. So it's just so hard. I don't know how Ned does this, ensures stability. I think
you don't think it's reasonable to say that if Jaime gets sent to the wall, the Mountain gets executed, Tywin doesn't feel like his hands are tied. I guarantee he's not happy. But you don't think he accepts the Master of Coin thing, looking to the future to be like, man, you know what? Yeah, this sucks ass, but eventually, when this regency is over, there's a king in here that I could probably start sweet talking again. I mean, I was pretty close with his dad.
So let's just assume Tywin is happy with this. Master of Laws, I think, is, and this is kind of weird too, that Master of Laws went to Renly in the books, but I really feel like this is a Stannis thing. Master of Laws,
absolutely.
I think Varys hightails it out of there. I don't know if he sticks around for Ned. He possibly does, but I just don't know.
I'm not so sure Varys escapes or hightails it out of there, but I don't know if he secures that spot as Master of Whispers. I mean, again, Varys is kind of on team, well, he's not really on team Targaryen, he's on team Blackfire potentially. So yeah, maybe he would hightail it out of there right away if all the theories are true, and if what seems to be true is true, and he is like a Blackfire or a Blackfire sympathizer, and he wants them to eventually usurp the Targaryens. Right, like if Ned is here and he's actively trying to rebuild and re-strengthen the legit Targaryen line, I think you're 100% right, if that's his larger goal. If it's not, and it just kind of turns out to be a coincidence, circumstance thing, then I think he just stays around. I don't know who becomes the Master of Whisperers in that situation then. I mean, maybe that's your chance to bring Littlefinger back into the fray, but that's the only way I could see it happening.
Yeah, and Littlefinger needs to build up his reputation a little bit with at least Lysa, and then he kind of is brought in underneath Jon Arryn because he's like, hey, this guy's actually does pretty well over in the Vale for me, so I'm going to bring him into the small council, or at least bring him over to King's Landing. Yeah, so I don't know. Varys, maybe we'll just keep him as the Master of Whispers right now. Master of Ships, I really don't give a shit. I don't know, maybe Lord Manderley, Master of Ships or something, where Ned can get somebody else on there.
Yeah,
maybe Renly's on there.
He could be. I don't know. Renly, though, he doesn't care about naval. That's what sucks about Stannis. He just so happens to be the most perfect person in every way. It's like, it's not a skill tree, but it's like a pie. What do you call that thing? One of those octagonal charts that show your different skills. His are maxed out. It's one solid color because he's got the looks, he's got the naval abilities, he's got the personality, he's got the women.
Grinds his teeth at a high rate.
Oh, dude, it smells absolutely incredible. It's great.
Grand Maester, still Pycelle. I think if Tywin is there, then Pycelle will be happy enough because he's his little butt boy. He loves Tywin so much that if he can be, oh, yes, Master of Coin, please polish my gold piece. After we're situated now, the small council, who do you think, if Ned Stark raises Viserys, do they assign a marriage to him? Do they let him pick himself? Because I think they try to hey, no, you're betrothed to this person. You need to marry this person. And if it's Visi 3 being raised up, I mean, he could make it go to Robert's kid if Robert somehow, which I don't know who Robert marries in the situation. Robert is going to be the Lord of Storm's End as well. I think he just goes back there. Or, and it would have been a really funny fanfic of somehow because Robert wants to be close to Ned, is that he becomes the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, even though he has to swear to celibacy, which I don't think Robert would ever do any time in his life. But he would love just to be there next to Ned the whole time. It's like, Ned.
Yeah, he definitely would. Well, what if he kills Catelyn and Mrs. Doubtfires to be with Ned? And Ned's such an idiot. Neanderthal Ned. He doesn't even notice. It's me, Ned. It's your beautiful wife. Give me a kiss, Ned. Damn you, Ned.
Yeah, so I don't know what Robert does fully. He definitely is just going to keep drinking and battling as much as he can. But who does Visi 3 marry?
I think he marries Sansa. I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I think you hit it right away. I don't see why he wouldn't. It's a perfect way to do it. It's not even a selfish move for Ned to say that. It's more of like a security thing, It's like, yeah, I don't plan on being here forever, but this is going to be my kingdom, essentially. I'm building this kingdom. My name is going to be attached to it, and I legitimately care about the well-being of everybody. So if I get my daughter in here, at least I can instill some of these values into what's going to become the new line of heirs to the Seven Kingdoms. I think that's the way to go. I think that's definitely the way to go. Maybe Rob could still end up with Dany, but I don't think that's necessary. I mean,
yeah,
he
double
can.
marriage is a little much. Yeah, I think there needs to find a way. Maybe that's what he offers Tywin is like, hey, you can have Dany marry your beautiful imp son to Dany. There you go. There's some red meat for him. Right?
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Listen, Tyrion's gonna enjoy it. Why not?
Tyrion.
Dude, I love it. Right before he drops those cannonballs into the turlet.
So Ned is down there. At some point, I think Littlefinger, if he somehow winds his way in there, is going to eventually backstab. And after this point where there's so many different pieces in place, we start getting into very like fanficky situation, which it just seems like to go from this situation all the way up to the last events within the books, at least. I don't know. It just so many just variables based off variables, and I think it gets out of control here. So I think the most we can say accurately is that somehow I think Littlefinger is going to backstab Ned. Ned's going to die either down there, or at least somehow Littlefinger is going to hitch his ride to Vizzy 3 in hopes he can kind of be a whisper in his ear moving forward.
I think so too. I think Littlefinger is definitely going to find a way. It's weird because we only see him kind of in this super prominent role, but he's just so good at it. He's what's the word, like prowess, right? At doing this mass manipulation thing with these little whispers and birds. I don't see a way he wouldn't get involved at some point. And like you said earlier, Jon Arryn's the one that brings in Littlefinger in the first place to be the master of coin. I think in this situation, Jon Arryn would not suggest him for that either. I don't think it's a situation where he suggests Littlefinger and then Ned in his divine wisdom says, no, we need to do Tywin instead. I think if anything, it's the reverse.
Right.
I think maybe Ned would say, no, I don't want Tywin. No Lannisters, we don't want him at all in here. And then Jon Arryn's like, no, for political reasons, you do have to give him something. You can't just take everything away. He's very powerful. He's very rich. You can't have him as an outright enemy. But I do think that Jon Arryn would still have Littlefinger whispering in his ear to like get him into some position. So yeah, eventually I do think he gets down there, and I think it's not going to end well for Ned, man. He wants Catelyn, and he wants her bad. His old makeout buddy.
I think Balon still rebels. I think you had your little fanfic about how Robert dies, possibly, or goes out.
That's my canon.
Yeah, Robert definitely goes over there. He's like first in line, please get me over there. I need a battle. So yeah, Balon still rebels like the idiot he is. Jorah, in the aftermath of this, I think he's still a simp, but he doesn't get his, parasitic relationship with Dany.
He'll find another girl. He'll find someone else.
Yep, find somebody else. But yeah, maybe Theon has to be raised by Benjen. Well, what a household Benjen has possibly on his hands.
Yeah,
with
do you
Jon Snow and
do you think? Listen, I think that he may be a contender to marry Cersei too, because he's not joining the Night's Watch. I mean, I guess he could go and join the Night's Watch eventually, maybe when Robb Stark comes of age or whatever, and he's the Lord of Winterfell.
Right.
Or I guess if Ned survives the whole thing and he comes back to be Lord, but I don't think that happens. So he could marry Cersei, though. That might be another way to kind of appease Tywin's bald head, Honestly, I think that might be a smart idea. I don't know if he sees it as a huge win, but I think in the public eye, he would have to make it seem like he sees it as a win. You know what I mean? He would have to be happy with it.
I love this.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, fuck. It would suck for him.
I planned the whole time. Yes, I think Cersei definitely wants to also try to get as close as possible to Jaime. So potentially going up to Winterfell would give her that ability. I don't think that's her end goal. Be like, at least I'm close to him, because I think we see in the books at least, she will trade Jaime for conveniences and pleasure any chance she can.
Preferably another Lannister, but
yeah, preferably a blonde-haired, beautiful Lannister. Doesn't matter if it's underage or not. There's also a possibility that maybe Cersei just goes up to Molestown just so she can be as close as possible to Jaime, which I think would be the worst case scenario for her, but at least she'd be close to Jaime, which I don't think.
Becomes a sleeve.
Yeah, exactly. Which is
no bueno.
I mean, not too far off. She just lives in the Red Keep in the highest, whatever you want to say, ranks within Westeros, and is still a sleeve, but by choice.
Maybe she'll be like Frank from It's Always Sunny. He's like loaded, has all this money. And then as soon as he gets that taste of the low life, he chooses to live in squalor, man. Hey, no joke. He's a deep cut for everybody. My grandpa, that's literally my grandpa. He's loaded from his working life, and he just chooses to live in filth and squalor. Now he's bought a bunch of land.
Last thing, Bloodraven. How does he get that beautiful Bran boy up to the little his little hideout? I don't know what you call it. The Weirwood hideout, his Weirwood van.
Weirwood van, holy shit! It's so far away now. It's so far away from King's Landing. I mean,
free. You know what? On his Weirwood van, it says "free legs" instead of free candy. Like, come on in, dude.
Well, if he's doing his rounds
Relax.
around the Seven Kingdoms, then yeah, I mean, he gets up the same way because Bran's still going to be a cringelord parkour artist. In fact, probably even more so because Ned's going to spend even less time with him since he has so much more on his plate as the actual king. So yeah, I mean, Bran's probably going to injure himself a whole lot sooner.
Yeah, he probably gets injured somehow. I don't know if he gets back up to Winterfell. Bloodraven somehow has to pull him up there. It's just going to be a long, way more intensive, 40 chess moves to get him up there. Also, I think Hodor doesn't make the trip down to King's Landing. I think a lot of people start asking questions, and they're like, you let this large, mentally disabled man be around your children the whole time? Maybe you shouldn't be leading the Seven Kingdoms, Ned Stark.
Well, it's just to save face, right? It's like once they realize they're going to be king, they kind of have to get rid of all their baggage from the past, so they just bring Hodor into the woods and lenny him, You got to get rid of it. You can't let that get out.
They just tell him, like, hey, walk into the narrow sea real quick. We'll just tell you when to turn around. And
Hodor.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and smash that like button.
Or not. We don't care.